I'm here today at Hawkesbury Museum with Councillor Nathan Zampogno. He's going to talk to us about the flood exhibition that's currently on and is commemorating the Great Flood of 1867. So what's that chart you've got there, Nathan?
Look, this is a chart of all of the floods that have occurred in historical time since the beginning of the colony, and the significant flood that, of course, we're commemorating this month is the 150th anniversary of the 1867 flood that reached the record height of 19.7 metres above the mean level of the river. And of course there have been many floods before and since, curiously terminating here in 1992, and there hasn't been a significant flood since then.
Now you've also got a family connection with the 1809 flood, haven't you?
I do. So if we look back here, there were two floods in the year 1809, and they were big ones too. And when I was doing my family history research, I was able to work out that I am the direct descendant of a convict that came out in the Third Fleet by the name of William Kentwell, and he came out here and he died here in Windsor, then known as Green Hills, in that flood of 1809, and he is a direct ancestor of mine. So there's a very personal connection for me about flood and the disaster that floods cause, because it's in my own family. Yeah.
Okay, so what else have we got in the exhibition?
Well, look, this wonderful exhibit here at the Hawkesbury Museum, I think is something that all Hawkesbury locals should come and visit. If you've never visited the museum, please come. And this particular exhibit about the flood isn't part of the fixed exhibit, it's something that will eventually be taken away and replaced by something else. But we have so many, it's such a well-documented event, flooding in the Hawkesbury. So we've got newspaper clippings, we've got photographs, we've got personal reminiscences, we've got this letter here from Governor Macquarie, who was reproving locals from living on the floodplain, because it's always a gamble. Rich soil, stop the colony from starving in the early days, and here he is warning the people as if these foolish people are unwise enough to build their dwellings on the floodplain where all of the rich alluvial soils are. If a flood comes, don't expect much sympathy. So
that letter, when you wrote it, had he already set up the Macquarie towns, which were the high places?
Indeed. So this letter is dated 1817, and the 5 Macquarie towns were gazetted in 1810, and we celebrated that bicentenary a number of years ago.
Okay, yeah, so they'd already had that big 1809 or several floods.
Oh look, there have been so many floods. I mean, you know, between the beginning of the colony and the time that letter would have been written, there'd been a dozen different floods.
Yeah, oh, okay, so he knew what he was talking about.
Absolutely, and it's always been part of the DNA of the Hawkesbury, and one of the things that I'd really like to raise awareness of for people that have come to this district since the last flood in 1992, so that's a quarter century. If you're new to the Hawkesbury and you haven't been here for more than 25 years, you've never experienced a flood. And those occasions where the river rises a little and they close the bridge on a precautionary basis, I can assure people that isn't a flood. When a real flood comes, in the 1867 flood, the water was a foot above the upper balcony of the doctor's house there in Thompson Square.
Yeah, someone got off that balcony.
They stepped off the wet balcony and into a punt and were taken to safety. There were the water was up to the eaves of Windsor Railway Station.
Yeah.
The viaduct between Windsor and Mulgrave was completely submerged.
Let's have a look at what's in the next room as well.
The telegraphy had been cut off some days prior. In fact, this floodboat here, this floodboat, what a wonderful relic we have of this. This is a contemporary floodboat. This was a boat that was built in the 1860s, and it was used for police and for flood rescue work from the 1860s and on in Wiseman's Ferry. So this very boat was a flood rescue boat contemporary of that time,
so
but at Wiseman's Ferry. Very easily. And other boats like this will be on display in Thompson Square on the evening of the 23rd when the big commemoration takes place, to give people a kind of a sense of what it must have been like. Imagine filling a boat like that full of bedraggled women and children without their possessions, trying to seek some dry ground.
Now we've also got a mill wheel, haven't we, that was actually washed
Indeed.
away.
So if you come through here,
in the 1860s.
fascinating story. So this mill wheel, which was from about the 1830s, was in Castlereagh, but it was washed downstream in the flood, and it was buried, and it was lost for a century. And wooden artefacts of this vintage are exceptionally rare now. And it was uncovered some years ago at Yarramundi, of all places, and it was conserved, and it was brought here, and it's part of the exhibit. And, you know, it doesn't look much, but something of this antiquity is a rare and precious reminder of the way that we used to live.
And it only survived because of it was stuck in the mud, wasn't it?
That's right. It was buried, and effectively that arrested the decomposition and preserved it so that it could be found and brought back to us.
Now there's a big picture over here which goes to the Hawkesbury now and the dangers we have now, including a big panorama of Windsor, which we think might be the 1961 flood.
That's right, and here we see it. So there's Macquarie Street, there's the Seventh-day Adventist building, there's Prospect Electricity. Down this way we'll be getting towards the hospital, I suspect. And look, there's a sailboat on the water. I mean, at the height of the 1867 flood, there was a sea of water between 25 and 35 kilometres wide that stretched from Riverston to the foot of the Blue Mountains.
Now people are saying that couldn't happen again because of Warragamba Dam. Is that true?
That's one of the things that I want to dispel. Warragamba Dam was never built as a flood mitigation dam. For it to have any mitigating effect, studies have shown that it would have had to have started 5% full. And it's raining today, and I can tell you that the capacity of the dam at this very moment is 94%. It's 94% full, and the worst flood in memory in 1867 was the result of only 4 days' rain. 4 days of rain falling in the right part of the catchment between here and Goulburn on ground that's already waterlogged, and you could have a scale of flood like that again. Warragamba would not save us, but the good news is that a recent announcement from the state government has invested a handsome sum in now developing a program to raise that dam wall, which will give us some mitigating effects, and that cannot arrive soon enough. And in fact, the program and the advocacy to raise the dam wall has been going on since I was a boy.
Yeah.
Starting with Dammit and even before. And the work of people like John Miller has been integral in finally persuading our government to understand that the economic cost of a flood of this scale happening again is so unthinkable, so incalculable, is that investment is a very wise investment.
Now there's also this exhibition that we missed over here, which is flood pictures from several different floods of then and now. Can you show us that one?
Absolutely. The ones that we picked out, that's in the main street of Riverston, and this one's looking near the Siebel, near the Runcorn Barracks, towards the RAF base. So that's now, and that's the flood in 1978. And the only other one that I like to pick on is this one from the 1986 flood. So let's say I was about 14 at the time, and this flood here is looking down the terrace towards the current bridge, which would have gone across here. There we go, there's the terrace, there's the doctor's house around the corner here.
Yeah.
And to come in and to put yourself in the shoes of people enduring not even the biggest floods, but the moderate floods that we've had over and over and over again over so many years, I think is something that we need to be more flood aware. People that have come to the district in the quarter century since the last bad flood owe it to themselves to understand where their property is situated and what plans for resiliency are in place for evacuation, for the preservation of property. The stories that came out of the 1867 flood, there were stories that the beaches of Sydney, from Longreef to Barrenjoey, were black with the detritus of that flood. We're talking about furniture, we're talking about uprooted trees, we're talking about dead livestock, and of course sadly we would be talking about humans.
Yeah, so there's the whole lot of commemorations in Windsor, I think from the 23rd to the 25th of June, isn't it?
Precisely, and there's also a dinner on the 22nd to commemorate the particular role of the Either family in the history of flooding in the Hawkesbury. There were 12 lives lost in one family when the Eithers, 2 brothers and their wives and their various children, lost 12 members of their family. It's such a harrowing story. They built a new slab place at Cornwallis, which is part of that arc of the river between North Richmond and where it rejoins us here in Windsor. And they poked a hole through the shingle roof, and they sat on the roof as the waters began to rise and the dusk started to, ebb away, leaving them in the cold and the dark. And then towards midnight, the roof caved in The children and the women fell into the water. There was a heroic effort on the part of some townspeople who knew that they were in danger to try and rescue them. The rescue boat arrived at about 3 in the morning and it was too late.
That's the iconic loss of that 1867 flood.
That's right. So on the 22nd, I'll be very pleased to attend a dinner to commemorate the Ediths, and the council is restoring the sign that commemorates the loss of the Ediths that sits there behind St Matthew's Church, and we're presenting them with a small replica of that on
But the main event's on the 23rd.
So I'm encouraging all residents of the Hawkesbury, if you have any interest in the Hawkesbury and of our flood heritage, to come to Thompson Square here in Windsor on the evening of the 23rd, on the Friday of June, and to come and participate in what looks like quite a grand celebration of the terrible but fascinating events that occurred 150 years ago this month.
Okay, thanks Nathan.